Welcome back to Scottsdale Living Podcast. We've got a great candidate here today, Lisa Borowsky, who I haven't talked to for probably 2 years since COVID, or 4 years. It's been a bit.
4.
Yeah, 4 years. Obviously, that was the last time. So 4 years. Lisa's running for mayor here in Scottsdale.
Indeed.
A Scottsdale native, an attorney, mom, former city council member. I mean, what are you not doing? You got a lot going on.
I was a spin instructor.
What, really? And a restaurant critic. So that's a lot going on.
We just talked about that.
Yeah. So what makes you want to run for mayor this time around?
Stepping up for my hometown
Sure.
is what is driving me to run in 2024. I've watched what's gone on, I would say, since I left the council in 2012. We've seen a real evolution in the city of Scottsdale that does not look or feel like the place I grew up.
Sure.
I think we're moving away of from our rich Western heritage, and we're moving in a direction of urbanization that I'm not comfortable with.
Sure.
That's why I decided to run in the first place. Over the last 3.5 years, the current mayor, Ortega, I'm very concerned with the decisions that are being made, the policies, the lack of responsibility, really, when it comes to spending taxpayer dollars.
Sure.
So I'm sure we'll get into that. But so that's what's driving me. I'm very passionate about it, about our city,
Sure.
obviously, as we all are. And during my service on council, 2008 to 2012, I just loved the policy side of it.
Sure.
I was so interested in it and actually being part of influencing the future of our city. It's really drives me.
So like a really hot button issue, I think, with a lot of the residents, and you hear it all the time, is development. Like, so how do you, because the city's not going to stop growing, right?
Right.
So, but how do you grow in a way that fits our culture, our feel, instead of, apartment complexes in the middle of parking lots?
Agreed. Great question and great point. So I think it starts with a vision. I have a vision for Scottsdale, and it does not look like a lot of apartments, set up in parking lots. You articulate the vision and you execute based on that. You attract what you're advocating for. I think there's been a real lack of leadership, a lack of vision under the current administration, and people, developers will just show up with whatever they think they can get through.
Sure.
And I think that's what's going on. One of the first things I would do is sit down with the planning department director and say, look, Scottsdale is not for sale.
Sure.
We are not selling out to any developer of, any project that wants to come through. This question comes up a lot during my, when I'm meeting individuals out in the public.
Sure.
What can the city council really do? Or in fact, it just came up today. What can the mayor really do to stop, the proliferation of apartment projects or high density? I have nothing against apartments.
Sure.
I love the Optimist Sonoran Village. I voted for it. Back then, I thought there was a real need. It replaced a dilapidated marketry, right?
Absolutely.
But what can the city council really do? Well, I think we don't need more apartments in Scottsdale. I think we've hit our comfortable maximum.
Sure.
And there are 15,000 or more apartment units still to be built in the pipeline. So what the city council and what the mayor can do procedurally, there is probably not one parcel in Scottsdale that is by right zoned to accommodate multifamily high density housing. So every single developer that's looking to do that right now has to identify a parcel that they hope to entitle. So the city council can say no, right? And setting the stage and making your position known that what we're looking for is high quality. So if that fits with a, high quality, just an amazing apartment project, maybe it's in South Scottsdale where it fits really well. It's all about the fit, the quality, and what this project is going to bring to our community. Having said that, I definitely am biased toward no more high density apartment projects. I think we're comfortably close to our limit.
Sure.
Yeah. So
flip that a little bit into like mixed use, right? Because I mean, Scottsdale, Phoenix, especially Scottsdale, is really kind of becoming a tech hub, right? I mean, it's a little mini Silicon Valley in the desert, and it's not even mini anymore. But that's coming, like the Park project. There's some big developments probably coming up, and with the semiconductor plant. What's your thoughts on that and how that develops in the city?
I think that's a great fit for us. When you look at, Oldtown, when you're thinking what could be next for Oldtown,
Sure.
I don't like the idea of heightened density. That area should remain a low slung Western flair type area. I do think we need updates to Oldtown. I think we need a beautification project. And I think the city should be the one leading the way with the guidance and the input from the business owners and residents down there. Having said that, I think there's an opportunity, and we've seen it already there, to go, to improve and put a little bit of residential in the area, like you said, mixed use on top of stores and businesses, but at a maximum height, right? Historically, that was 36 feet.
Sure.
And,
it's getting stretched out.
Honestly, I subscribe to Mayor Herb Drinkwater's position that we don't need to see building heights over and above 36 feet. Now, you may know, I don't know, most people don't know, but David Ortega was the one that blew the roof off the ceiling, or the roof off the ceiling. That was interesting. But blew the cap off the height limitation.
I did not know that.
In Oldtown.
Wow.
He made the motion during his term, used the emergency clause to get the waterfront towers.
Oh, wow.
That sits at 135 feet, and it was 60-foot limit at the time, to get that through. And the thing about the emergency clause is it cannot be referred to the voters. So that's an interesting point that not many people know. I love the waterfront towers. I'm not critical of it, but I would not want to see Oldtown full of that height.
Yeah, that would be a bummer, right? I mean, it would take away a lot of the views and everything else. I mean, it's a beautiful area.
It would take away anything we know about it, that we love about it now. So, but I'm open to the idea of mixed use. I think that's exactly what we need.
Sure.
High quality mixed use projects that, really create a nice, luxurious, unique vibe.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's some interesting things that have probably been like little black eyes for the city in the last couple of years, right? So, I think that like the hockey arena thing was one, water in Rio Verde has kind of been another. Why? Does that bother you a little bit? Because it seems like there was no reason for that.
Yeah, I think that shows a lack of leadership, a lack of diplomacy, and it really was, I think, both those incidents. I have personal stories about both of those. Well, not personal, but, I hear from a lot of people.
Sure.
And the mayor shooting from the hip without doing any, honestly, no investigation or participation in the process with the coyotes, I just think, it's really
to see that happen.
Really, really a bad look for the mayor's office and the city of Scottsdale. In terms of Rio Verde, there's a lot of Rio Verde residents that are, in essence, part of Scottsdale.
Absolutely.
Right?
Sure.
All of the horse community that I grew up and loved and participated in has been pushed out to Rio Verde because of zoning and housing developments. Well, those people are part of our community.
100%. Yeah. Totally.
And I know a lot, having been involved in projects and water discussions. My dad owned the Snow Bowl for 30 years. He did snowmaking, water.
Cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and
That's neat.
He did one of the first purchase and transfer agreements with the city of Scottsdale to provide water to golf courses in Scottsdale.
Oh, that's cool. Okay.
From the Harquahala Valley. Sure. So I know a significant amount about water. It's clear to me that Mayor Ortega does not, and this has become kind of a campaign platform that no one can really discuss because it's such a complex issue, right?
Sure.
But the city of Scottsdale, as you may know, has one of the most sophisticated water recharge plants.
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah.
In the country, right? So going around telling people during the Super Bowl, during the Waste Management Open, that was 2 years ago, right? 2 years ago now?
The Super Bowl was 2 years ago.
Yeah, 2 years ago. Making this big stink that made national news that we're running out of water. Okay, so I'm going to sideline and tell you a little personal story. I was out collecting signatures at Fat Ox. I thought, well, friend invited me there.
Sure.
Don't really go there. Sorry, Mercury Corner. But I was there and met this really nice couple, and they were from somewhere in the Midwest. And I said, "Do you all live here?" And they said, "No, we're from Minnesota." And I always go, "Not yet, right?"
Yeah.
That's my next comment. And they said, "No, we're from Minnesota, pick a place." And they said, the gentleman said, "Well, we were looking to buy a second home either here or in some city in Florida."
Sure.
And he said, "And we chose Florida because Scottsdale's running out of water."
Oh my God.
This is true. Like, this is a true story.
Yeah.
But this made national news.
Yeah.
So now we have a footprint.
And just be clear, we do not have a water problem.
We do not have a water problem.
Just so people get that. It's like there is no problem.
Let's be crystal clear about that.
Yeah.
And, it's tough. It's a soundbite.
Yeah.
With the Coyotes, I did hear from people both pro and con.
Sure.
But to come out of the gate and just dismiss a major league franchise, I mean, talk about anti-business climate.
Yeah.
Get out of our town.
Yeah.
It's not even.
And it wasn't even in our town.
It's not even in our city.
It's like, yeah.
But I think the funniest thing that was said in that diatribe of his was, Scott, you will not have Scottsdale's water assets. Do you know that aquifers flow without regard to
city limits,
leaders?
Yeah, right.
Decisions.
Yeah,
right. So
crazy.
it was pretty interesting. So I'm not a fan of that type of behavior.
Yeah, I get it. It was kind of tough.
Listen, learn, educate yourself.
Sure.
Try to come to some consensus. Work to.
We got to work together, right? I mean, it's a nonpartisan city council for the most part, and it should be for the better of the city. But let's jump around a little bit. So, one of your platforms that you talk about on your website, and that you've talked about to other people, is citizen participation.
Absolutely.
And I mean, I feel like the city doesn't really talk to the citizens as much as it could. And how can you change that?
I think there are a couple of approaches to go about this. So I believe that we should change the process for boards, commissions at the city.
Okay, that's interesting.
To direct appointments from council members, because they're operating in a vacuum.
Sure.
Right? And they're meeting in a vacuum without really interacting much with the council and the mayor's office. And then they're making recommendations. And I've heard from plenty of board members or commission members in the past, it just goes into a big hole. They don't, it's kind of like, oh, we did all this work and now, no one's really,
it's just
feedback. No one's getting, doing anything with it. So I think after being on the city council and kind of seeing the process, I think if you have accountability to a council member and you have that relationship, you can have discussions that don't violate open meeting laws individually, right? And there can be representation for the voters, for the citizens, through the council member who is doing the direct appointment. So you've got the ideals and the really the beliefs of who the elected official is for the people, filtering down to the board or the commission. I think that's a really good recipe. And then there's a lot more give and take just by virtue of that relationship.
Sure.
The second thing I think we should look at doing is districting. I advocated for that previously in 2020. Sure. David Ortega, told everyone he was going to get districting. He never brought it even to the ballot.
Right.
I think that's one of the first things we should do. I'm not saying it's absolutely what we need, but I think it will be very helpful to get more direct, accountable representation
across the board from top to bottom.
Exactly. Then you have South Scottsdale, representation, 2 members, perhaps you have Far North Scottsdale, 2 members.
Sure.
There's a couple of ways to divide the districts.
I think that makes a ton of sense, right? And I've asked that question to a couple other people because it is a different the city varies. The needs are you can go from the horse properties up north to, the mass apartments and stuff down south. So totally different needs. And they're not necessarily represented equally,
And Oldtown should almost have like its own,
Sure. Yeah.
its own
It's a whole different thing going on, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about roads, right? So there's been roundabouts, there's road congestion, road diets, there's traffic. I mean, what do you think? And we're going to continue to grow. It's just not going to stop, right? So how do we manage that?
I think many things about this topic. First and foremost, the current administration is not focused on the needs, both immediate and in the future, in terms of infrastructure. So our streets, in my opinion, and I hear this from many, many people, are literally falling apart.
Right.
And that's unacceptable. And so we need to be taking care of the infrastructure first and foremost. We need to be planning ahead, not eliminating lanes. We're having all this density come on board, and we're taking away lanes from streets, road diets, right?
Yeah.
That is nonsensical. It's counterintuitive, and it's not going to work.
Sure.
Meanwhile, we're not looking ahead. So the regional roadway participation fund, it's Prop 400. It's going to be on the ballot this November. So every city contributes to the regional road funding, right? Well, Scottsdale has been a donor city. It's continuing to be a donor city. David Ortega is the representative from Scottsdale City Council on that board, and he's not fighting for our needs and our dollars that we contribute to those funds
to get them back. Sure.
Yeah, and what we should do probably is just withdraw from that.
Yeah.
We don't need to be improving, Chandler, Apache Junction. Right. We don't need to be improving paying taxpayer dollars to contribute to improvements elsewhere. We have plenty of needs on our own. Right?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. So we're continuing to hop around because there's a lot of cool stuff to talk about, right? So there's been really an uptick, or feels like it, at least to me, and I think a lot of other people, as far as homelessness and transients in the city, in the parks, at the intersections, under the highway, under the 101, at Scottsdale Road. So I don't really see a plan that's addressing that, or the city approaching it, but I do kind of think it's a problem. And I see it all the time that people are talking about it. I mean, what do you think?
It is probably the number two, probably the number two issue on people's minds. But because, to your point, you can look and see it.
Yeah, it's totally visible.
It's really impacting our daily lives, our day to day, and the look, feel, and experience in our community, right? So I have huge empathy for homelessness, people facing hard times. It's just absolutely devastating to see and to understand that that's their reality. Having said that, I do not think, and the Scott City Mayor Ortega, and he talked about this over the past 2 days during the debates, both David Ortega and Linda Milhaven said that they support the Bridges program, which is the homeless, in
hotels.
In hotels.
Yeah.
I do not support that. I do not, based on what I heard at the hearing held by Matt Gress, State Senator Matt Gress, who took David Ortega, to task really on what are you doing to screen people?
Sure.
What are you doing in terms of accountability to safety? What are you doing in terms of any collateral services that help these people? Nothing. We're just spending $3,500 a month on a hotel room
per person
for
or family or whatever,
per room, which they're small rooms, right? So hopefully there's a limit.
Can you explain the Bridges program a little bit? Because I do you feel like that really has kind of gone under the radar? Because I don't feel like the average citizen in Scottsdale even knows that that's happening.
Well, I'm just going to quote David Ortega from that hearing. He said, until a year ago, we've been operating this program for a year, and the hearing was, sometime last year. So he said, we've been operating this program for a year, and no one knew about it, and everything was just fine.
Yeah.
Well said.
Right.
That's a quote.
Yeah.
So, as soon as people learned that on the outskirts of McCormick Grand and, across from a Great Heart School, that we're operating a homeless hotel, people, were fired up about it. They were completely opposed to it.
Sure.
And it's a really bad idea. So homelessness, let me just share this with you. The Goldwater Institute just released their findings. They did a full analysis and investigation into what is going on, the homelessness crisis. We're pouring all this money at it, but it doesn't seem to be getting better. It seems to be getting worse. So in Phoenix, this is the findings, executive summary. Phoenix has dumped $180 million into the homelessness crisis. Meanwhile, last year, the homeless population was up 92%.
Wow,
so
that is crazy.
It's almost what's that saying, if you build it, they will come. And I only use that reference in relationship to another issue, the Vista del Camino food bank center, I had a resident reach out to me and say, this is over in the heart of kind of shopping mall area, Granite Reef area. So he said to me, he said, it's ruining our neighborhood. All these homeless individuals that are not from our area are coming. They're coming to, hang out in our parks and our yards and, and what is going on here? This is not fair to the residents. So my position is, and this actually, I was very educated on this during Matt Gress's hearing. It's clear, and I believed this before, this is a regional issue.
Sure.
This is not a city by city, line issue.
Should be a joined together task force kind of thing.
It should,
at some point.
It should be a regional effort to identify regional solutions.
Sure.
And one of the members on that panel ran I forget, Veritas, I forget the name of the nonprofit in Tucson. And they've really made an impact regionally in Tucson.
So they're having good results.
They're having good results. So that's what we should be doing. We should be identifying a location where there can be a campus.
Sure.
By the way, it's a multi-million, if not billion-dollar industry, homelessness, right?
Yeah.
The nonprofits that, and they're all doing good work. I'm not suggesting they aren't. But the results just aren't, they're all kind of working against each other, not together. And so if we could get a unified collaborative solution to this regionally, it's incumbent upon me as once elected mayor. I will definitely be looking at leading the charge in that regard.
Sure. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big one. So it's definitely on people's minds. Let's flip over to money, right? So the Scottsdale budget has kind of ballooned in the last 4 or 5 years, right? I can't quote the numbers off the top of my head, but it's way bigger than it was. So, what's your take on what's being done with the budget and how it's being used and implemented?
That's the most,
right?
this is the most pressing issue, except for people just don't know it's the most pressing issue. So on David Ortega's watch, it has been the most fiscally irresponsible approach to spending taxpayer money that I think we've ever seen.
Wow.
Right. Okay. So let me give you an example. In his ballot statement in 2020, he advocated for himself that he would be a full-time mayor / architect who would oversee the 2019 bond projects and make sure they stayed on budget. Let me just give you what the current status is on that. Of the 58 projects that were approved, $319 million, I believe the number was, in 2019. Since 2020 to today, 11 of the 58 are fully funded. The balance, the remaining 47, half are unfunded, half are partially funded. So you've probably heard about the sewer pipe expansion. That is, the sewer is being expanded for the state trust land to accommodate currently, or in the near future, the Optima McDowell Mountain Ranch apartments, right? So what started as a $6 million project that the voters approved, then went to a $12 million number because of an error, apparently, as far as I understand it. That was a couple of years ago.
That's a big error.
Well, it gets a lot bigger when the council, I think it was a week ago, with the only dissenting member being Councilman Graham, Barry Graham, approving a spend currently $68 million.
Wow.
$68 million.
68?
6 to 68. Wow, do the math on that.
Crazy.
So, and with the caveat and the information to the council that it may still go up from there.
Wow, that's intense.
If he were the board president of a condo association doing a roof replacement, and it went from $600,000 to $60 million or $6 million, even $6 million. He would be gone.
Totally.
So, there's all kinds of reasons. We've got inflation. Well, inflation is 4.19% over average over the last 3.5 years or 4 years.
Yeah.
So you can blame all the excuses. Well, the worst part is, I'm going to say the worst part, he won't even let people discuss it.
Oh, wow.
Councilman Graham was completely shut down. How dare you ask about why the project is going from $6 million to $68 million?
That's crazy.
And it happens all the time. So suffocating debate and questions is not my speed.
Sure.
What I will do is call for, an audit of what has gone wrong in the budgeting for these projects.
And there should be some accountability on that as well. I mean, whether it's the contractor end or the vendor or the council, whoever. Right?
Absolutely. And there should be immediate accountability at the election, and we have that chance. But going back to, so 25% increase in salaries at City Hall over the past, since Mayor Ortega took office. Do you know anyone getting a 23 to 25% pay increase?
Not currently, no.
Do you?
Yeah. I wish I was.
I don't think I ever knew anyone that got that in 3 years' time. So there's a lot of wasteful spending going on. Sustainability director that we hired out of Baltimore to become the sustainability department director, $250,000 a year. So there's a lot of waste going on. I mean, we're spending taxpayer dollars on, I think there's a $10 million reserve that's not specific for homeless or bridge housing that the taxpayers are being asked. And this is out of the general fund. So, there is a lot of money that is going toward the wrong wants.
Right.
Our needs, the infrastructure, important items that should be being addressed or not being addressed.
Sure.
Police and fire.
Yeah.
So let's talk. I'm sure you're going to.
Cool. Well, we're going. We got just a little bit left, but so let's talk. I got two things I want to throw at you. Obviously, the police situation in Scottsdale it's kind of scary lately, right? I mean,
really scary.
Yeah, I mean, people are going after officers. There's been, what's it called, vacation burglary thing. I mean, there's been a lot of stuff going on. So
dinner time.
Yeah, right. And so, how do you approach that with, obviously the police is the police run the police, but how do you work together with them to kind of get a handle on that a little better?
We need to. Well, that's how I do it. I work with the police, right? The association and the department to identify how do we really, really incentivize strong, good officers to join, to become full-time employees, to stay in the department. We need to support them as a community and as a council from the top down, and we need to celebrate them. So, you probably remember when that female officer was, subjected to the viral video that one of these guys goes around and tries to evoke a bad response from a cop just to get more views, right? Well, it worked in that case, and she wasn't on her best day, right? Well, she didn't do, as they said, finally 4 or 5 days later, she didn't do anything that was wrong. She didn't commit a crime. She wasn't out of protocol. She just wasn't very nice or happy, right? So, you got to come to defend our officers. No one on the city council that I saw said anything in defense of her.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that. That's tough.
Her video went viral. So it's all about morale. It's all about valuing the public safety officers and really just
as much support
celebrating them. Exactly. But on the protect and preserve tax, voters are being asked to increase sales tax by to add a new sales tax, 0.15%.
Right.
And that's part of the projects or needs in there, unfunded needs, are police and fire in our parks and preserve. Why are those unfunded in our general fund?
Yeah. It doesn't make a lot of sense, right?
Inexcusable.
Yeah. Crazy. So we'll touch one more topic. We deal with a ton of small businesses. So Scottsdale, obviously a fantastic destination. People love to come here. I think the heartbeat of Scottsdale is small business, and a lot of the small business owners feel a disconnect with the city and with the larger companies and resorts and everything else. Is there a way to kind of address that and maybe tie them a little more together or make them feel a little more of the community?
Well, I would start with not raising sales tax.
Sure.
That's probably one thing that all business owners that sell products, right, can agree upon. Let's not do more harm to,
Right.
already a struggling, potentially small business
Sure.
owner. So in terms of incorporating them in the bigger picture, I mean, I was on the Scottsdale CVB board, now Experience Scottsdale. I think that we could do a better job working with Experience Scottsdale
Sure.
to really do focus on small businesses and get energy going. I know there's a lot of room to advance the online campaigns that the city does, like featuring small businesses or having small business week or something.
Yeah,
like
totally.
those.
Absolutely.
But what I would do first, before I start thinking of ideas, because I'm a lawyer,
Yeah, totally.
but as the mayor, what I would do first is get a core group, a strong group that want to be involved of small business owners to see what they think we can do for them, not what I think we can do for them.
It's a
Right?
fantastic idea.
Yeah, and get their brainstorming going on, and
Sure.
they're the ones that make it happen.
Yep.
With our help.
I love it. So we got to wrap it up. I really appreciate you being here. Give us a little bit of information about you, where we can find you, websites, all that kind of good stuff.
Lisa for Mayor, FORmayor.com. That's my website. You can find me online, just Googling me, Lisa Borowsky, and that comes up pretty easily, luckily, because it's tough to spell. And I love to hear from people.
Sure.
We're looking for a ton of volunteers right now, be part of our movement, as they say, to take back Scottsdale.
I love it.
Truly. And let's get our city where it should be.
Cool. Thank you.
Forward.
Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate you.
Thank you, John.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate it.